YouTube, this is Darkon633, and today I'm bringing a review of the Transformers Beast Wars Ultra Class Megatron. Now, this is the second review of June for my Blast from the Past reviews under the Beast Wars theme, and I have to admit, even for a toy of this age, I'm actually mighty impressed at what Hasbro Takara did to design the toy overall. Now, obviously there is quite a bit of limitations due to the fact that it is quite an old toy even to this day now, and unfortunately, this is not the 10th anniversary release, which was completely modified to highly represent the character that was appearance on the show. So, as you can see already on the bat, there's a lot of missing details, and it's quite different than what the final product in the show was. That's because, just like G1, a lot of the earlier toys weren't based on the show initially, and the fact that they had kind of needed to revolve around the toys to make them and so on. So obviously it's going to be a little bit different, and design changes and other various things makes it so that things don't look quite like they should. Now off the bat, the toy had some accessories that I actually don't have with the toy, and I'm okay with it since it's not really a bother to me. When I got this from eBay about a couple years ago, I was fine for what it is, just because he is actually getting quite hard to get a hold of. Some of the missing pieces include the little mask piece, which was just kind of the thing that they gave as a gimmick for a lot of the Beast Wars toys. I thought they just looked really ugly. And the good part is that unlike other masks, which have large pieces sticking out from the side or something, this actually just attached from the back here with the mask. So even though there are these open gaps there, and from the front, there is no issue. So that's good that they didn't have some weird giant pieces sticking out from the earpieces like Rhinox and so on. So I'm actually quite happy that that's not really an issue. The only other accessory that he is missing is the missiles that shoot from his waist guards. But that's about it. There isn't really anything else he had besides inside here. He does have the water squirter, which unfortunately has a little crack inside, a little tiny piece in there. It doesn't affect anything, but it is a bit fragile, and it is a kind of old toy, so it's understandable things may not last like they should. Now, unfortunately, I did not get into Beast Wars when it was first airing on TV, and I don't have that much attachment to the characters as other people might have due to those who actually grew up with the show, but even watching Beast Wars, I still really liked Megatron, and I really think he was a great character overall. Now anyways, articulation-wise, his head is on a ball joint, which allows full movement. It can kind of jimmy it around, so there is a little bit more give in room in order to articulate the head, so that's good. Moving away the back pieces, it will allow you to have full and tight, ratchety kind of joints, and it does do that sometimes, since it does get a bit loose. It just attaches in the back here, so keep that in mind. It can turn pretty well. It can also swivel at the top of his arm, and since he doesn't have a traditional arm, there really isn't anything like wrist articulation or anything, since it's just a giant head. So this is pretty much all you're getting, but he does have some elbow movement on this joint up here. The other arm, which is actually also quite different, this is to represent his tail, which he used as a kind of blaster in the show. But for the toy, they added a new gimmick, where if you press this lever, it gets kind of caught, so sometimes it doesn't work. But if you do it correctly, it kind of does this clamping mechanism. So you can see, you kind of need to fiddle around with it. So it does kind of do this clamping mechanism when you press it. But that's pretty much it for the gimmick-wise. His shoulder also turns really well on this side. It can also have outward shoulder movement as well, which is really tight. Forgot to mention that it does have it on this side as well. He does have a regular elbow articulation, which you can see in the open unlike the other side, since most of it's actually covered from the actual joint here. And he doesn't have any wrist articulation, obviously, because he doesn't have a real hand. In the show, and in, if I remember correctly, some of the other Megatron toys, he does have a real hand that this piece would come off, and then you could just plug it back on and so on. But the original Ultra toy didn't have a hand, since they kind of just built in the tail into the piece here. So, unfortunately, that's pretty much all you got there. He does have full waist articulation, which is really tight on mine, so you can turn it around as well. But it gets kind of caught, so be careful with there. It does have ratchets in the hips, can also bend forward and back. It's got a single knee joint, but it can also swivel, which is good. His feet can pivot a bit due to articulation. He does have some heel supports, so that is good. So that's pretty much it for articulation-wise, and I gotta admit, I'm pretty impressed that he has this amount of articulation for a toy that was released during Beast Wars. Now anyways, to transform it is kind of interesting. What you're gonna do is open up this piece here, and then collapse the head. You're gonna bend this forward and inward so that this piece aligns flat there. You're going to move the tail just for a bit, because we'll get to that once we go to the final steps. Now, what you're going to do is turn the feet around and then push in the heel pieces, since this is actually going to form the front of the beast mode. You're going to turn this around so that it faces this direction. As you can see, he's already kind of forming the beast mode already. You're going to bend the feet forward, both sides. And then you're going to turn these pieces so that you make sure you get them out of the way. What you're going to turn those back once you finish it. You close up the top here so that it kind of looks like that, but you do need to move some pieces around in order to make sure that you have enough clearance in order to close it up, since the wing pieces are actually just a shell which form around the beast body. Let's see. Once you get enough clearance, you should be able to bend everything into place. It can be kind of tricky for those who don't have the toy initially and not really used to transformation. But once you get everything aligned, it does clamp together, so that's good. And you're going to turn these pieces around so that they form the back part of the legs to fill in the gaps there. So it looks like that. And to finish up the tail transformation, sorry, not articulation. What you're going to do is this piece is going to have to bend inward, and it's going to kind of sit underneath, so you need to kind of get enough clearance in order to get into place. And these pieces are going to form around so that they close off. They can be a bit tricky if you don't know what you're doing. And then, once you get everything aligned, it should clamp into place, and then you'll be able to form the tail, so bear with me here. It just takes a little bit of effort in order to get into place. There you go. And then just close off the piece here, turn the arms, and there you have Megatron completely in his beast mode. I'll just kind of get him into position so that he doesn't fall. Can be a bit of a nuisance to fiddle around with. So there we have him in his beast mode. I gotta admit, the beast mode is very nice, and while it isn't quite accurate, especially since he has the infamous yellow belly color, which I don't really understand the color decisions of the toy, but other than that, it doesn't look too bad from afar. Obviously, he does just have a single red eye color. He doesn't have any pupils or anything, but that's pretty much what you get for color-wise. And then, obviously, the somewhat grayed green on the top. It's not quite green, but it's not quite gray either. It's like a mixture in between. It's kind of like lime green, just a bit. But, anyways, articulation in this mode includes his arms, which can turn around. He does have knee articulation still, but there isn't much you can do with that. It's quite limited since you can only put him in so many positions. You can kind of put him in the standard regular T-Rex stance, but he does have a little bit of an issue kind of posing without falling. And then he does have an opening mouth gimmick, which inside is actually just a water chute there, where you can actually pull in water inside. And just to show the actual thing, let's see if we can get into there. There you go. It's actually a piece that goes inside the mouth, just to show the crack, which you can see here, this piece kind of cracked on there. It doesn't do anything. It's just there to pour in water and everything. But other than that, it doesn't really affect the transformation or anything. This is made of a little softer material, so it allows you to squirt out. And then, to just plug it back in, you have to slide it inside the mouth, like this. Once you get that into place, it should slide in. I give it a bit tricky too because side is actually a joint that you need to push it in. There you go. There you have the joint back in. And that's pretty much it for the Beast Mode. And I really have to admit, for a toy that was released in the early 90s, I really think it's a great toy design overall. Now, since these are quite short reviews compared to the others, since I don't go with the full box design of that, I guess I'll just quickly show out the transform back. Now, transforming it back can be a bit trickier than putting it into Beast Mode. You kind of need to move everything out of the way, open up the clamps here, so that you feel all the parts again. Move the tail just a bit and get that out of the way for now. You're going to pull up this piece and then just get that out of the way and get it ready for full transformation. Pull down the feet like this, turn them around, pull out the heels. You can get in there. Bend down the shoulder piece and make sure that the arm is positioned like this. It's the most comfortable position pretty much for it. Then you're gonna just fiddle around with the legs to get them into a position that's comfortable for you. Pull back the back piece, and then you're going to pull up the head and close off the back here. Could be a bit finicky at times just because it gets quite loose over the edges. And then you're going to turn this around. And you kind of just open up the pieces here, and there isn't any official way to kind of move it around, but just to be sure, I guess to be easier, you can just keep it on like this, and there you go. We have Megatron back in his robot mode. Now, while it would be nice to get a hold of the 10th Anniversary Edition, the reason why I got a hold of this version is because the 10th Anniversary version is going for quite a bit of money now. And even the original Ultra Beast Mode toy can be quite expensive, but just nowhere near the amount the 10th Anniversary version went, so this is pretty much the way I went with. Now, it will be nice to see if Hasbro Takara decides to make a Generations version of the character, and it'll be quite interesting to see it in the new Voyager scale instead of the Ultra Class, since the Ultra Class obviously has not existed in a very long time, so the scaling has changed quite a bit, either by just the way that the plastic is sculpted and everything. But over that, I still think that the set Megatron here is a pretty cool toy, and I do give credit for a toy that was released in the early 90s to turn out pretty decent. Anyways, please comment, subscribe, and check out Hero Taku for the latest hero news. Also, please check down the channels down below, including WRW, which is now moved to its new location on YouTube, which is listed. Also, please check me out on Twitter under Darkon633. And I'll see you YouTube. Bye.